This man was a well-respected university professor who bought a used car dealership in a seedy area of town. He was also a dedicated father of 6 until he was found murdered in his office. Why was he killed? Was it a random robbery or something more sinister? Today, when science meets crime, how a photographic memory helped find his killer. Take a look at the investigation into the murder of Dr. Gul Talwar. Dr. Talwar's daughter, Lisa, is here. I'm sorry for the loss of your dad.
Thank you.
What was your relationship with him like?
My father and I were very close. He was a good family man, Dr. Oz. My dad wasn't the kind of guy that went away on the weekend to go fishing with his buddies or went down to the local bar to watch the game. If he had free time, it was spent with his children. So we were very close.
He's a university professor.
Yes.
A doctor. Taught economics, right? Had a doctorate. Did you find it odd that he would buy a used car lot? That doesn't seem to jive with that profession.
My father saw 24 hours in a day, and he was going to use them to his advantage. So coming from a third world country, he was such a patriot. He loved America. He used to tell us children, I've done my job. You're all US citizens. You can have, do, be whatever you want. So it was a purely economic decision. He would teach until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then go to the car lot until the early evening and on Saturdays.
So the used car business can be seedy, right? He was in a seedy part of town, but the business itself has sort of a dark underworld flavor to it. Do you think your dad understood the true risks of being in that business?
I don't think so, Dr. Oz. I don't think he saw it that way. My father, having grown up in Afghanistan, it was a very violent country. He had a lot of difficulties there. Mm-hmm. He saw, especially Nashville, Tennessee, as the promised land. He never felt afraid. He never felt threatened.
Yep.
He saw America as a place that would always be safe. So while that business does have that aspect to it, I don't think my father ever saw it that way.
Take me back to the day you learned he had been killed. What happened?
So it was March 17th. It was a beautiful day. It was the first warm day we had. So I had all the windows open in my house. I was outside and I was actually seeding my lawn. I had a bow rake, I had grass seed, and the phone kept ringing and I could hear it ringing. And but I was working, and so finally I got tired of hearing it ringing. I went inside and I answered the phone, and it was my brother. And I could tell immediately by the tone of his voice that something was very wrong. So he said to me, listen, something really bad happened today. He said, Daddy was at his car lot, and someone came to the lot and they shot him.
Oh.
And I remember asking him, shot him with what? The information just wouldn't go in. So my poor brother had to tell me the story again. He said, Lisa, Daddy was shot today. And then he said to me, Daddy's dead.
Oh. Oh.
And I don't know where I went. Excuse me. So I don't know where I went, but I went somewhere else. Because when I came back, I was on my knees in my bedroom and I was cradling the phone and I was just crying. I was just wailing. And I heard this voice in my head that said, you have to get up. You have to get up and you have to get up right now. So I remember standing up and asking, because I knew what I needed in that moment. I needed to be in the same place where my brother was. So I asked him where he was, he told me, and then I just got up, walked out of the house and drove to where he was.
What did you think had happened to your father? Why would anyone shoot him?
That was the part that was so disconcerting. We had no idea. We couldn't imagine anyone that held Daddy with such animosity that they would murder him. We thought maybe it was a robbery. But he had money on him, his watch was still on him. It defied logic to us because he wasn't that type of man that would have, that kind of hate directed at him, that kind of violence, that kind of brutality.
So up next, what happened the morning Dr. Talwar died? The detective solves the case using his exceptional memory. That's Detective Pat Postiglione. He's investigated the death of Dr. Gul Talwar, who owned a used car dealership, until he was found brutally murdered in his office. Now, there were several clues that pointed in different directions, but Detective Postiglione used what some call his photographic memory to solve the case. Detective Pat Postiglione is here today, as well as Dr. Talwar's daughter, Lisa. When you first met Detective Postiglione, what was your impression of him?
It was such a difficult moment for our family. We were so broken, we were grief-stricken. And the thing that struck me about Detective Postiglione is his otherworldly calm. He was absolutely calm. And then he started to ask us questions, and his questions were so thoughtful. My sense of it was he wanted to understand who my father was, not just the forensic information. He was genuinely interested in who my father was.
Detective, can you describe what you remember about a crime scene? Take this one specifically, when you arrived.
Well, I recall I got called out. It happened to be my daughter's birthday. I got called out there, and the victim was lying, her dad was lying on his right shoulder. His arm was extended, his eyeglasses were in his hand, his finger was pointed toward the window. There was a blood pattern there that told me where the victim was shot and where the victim ended up. It looked like he had actually been in a running position when he had fallen to the ground. I clearly recall that.
So a fair amount of detail. Now, Detective Postiglione says he remembers practically everything about a homicide case, including the crime scene itself, people interviews, weapons, everything. He doesn't even take written notes because he retains it all right here. It's the main tool he says he has used to solve hundreds of cases. I'm curious, because I think all of us might be able to harvest that power that you seem to have in just dealing with everyday issues. If you can solve crimes, we should be able to find our keys. So can you describe how your memory works at a crime scene? When you first encounter it, how do you begin to process it?
Well, when I go into a crime scene, first of all, I got to get the permission and blessing from the crime scene investigators. And once I'm allowed to get inside the crime scene, I make it my business to spend many hours inside the scene. The longer I stay inside the scene, the more sense the scene begins to make to me. And I make it a point, because we don't know what's relevant, we don't know what's irrelevant. So we look at everything as potential evidence. And then what we do is, when we're finished with all that and I leave, I understand everything that I've looked at. And I recall everything that I looked at. And if it turns out to be irrelevant, we didn't lose a thing. So I recall every single thing, because down the road, something that may be initially irrelevant may end up being relevant.
So do you think your memory is actually better than an actual photograph of the scene?
I would say that I could recall a scene and then I could compare it to a photograph of that same scene with my memory, and typically it's exactly the same.
So in Dr. Talwar's case, Detective Postiglione zeroed in on two suspects who were at the scene of the crime, Ronnie Aller and Terry Blanford. Right? Dr. Talwar had hired both of these men to work at his car dealership. Lisa, did you know either of these two men? Had you seen them around the dealership?
Well, one of the things I would do is I would go and visit my father for lunch, either at his offices at the university or at the car dealership. And I do remember seeing them there, Daddy giving them instructions, go do this with this vehicle or that vehicle, but just only in passing. I never had any face-to-face or one-on-one interaction with them.
So what frustrated authorities, as both of you know, but you should all know in the audience, is that these two suspects, they were pointing their finger at each other, saying the other guy was the actual shooter. Right. So I want Detective Pat to show us how his memory, come on up, determined who actually pulled the trigger. Who was the actual perpetrator? Remember, both guys, potential culprits. This is the crime scene, the outside of the office and inside of which Dr. Talwar was shot and killed. So Detective, as I look at this picture, and audience, let's just do this all together. When you look at this picture, can you tell which of these two men killed Dr. Talwar? Because I'm looking at this and I'm not quite sure what to focus on. So, help us. Using your photographic memory and your detective skills, what do you see here?
Well, when I look at the back side here, the first thing I notice is the size of the windows.
The size of the windows?
Right.
All right, let's zoom in on them. What are the sizes?
The size of the window is 24 inches by 26 inches this way.
You memorized that?
I did, yes.
All right, so what about that size? Where is
Well, the size of the window, we knew there was a break in the window, and we knew that the person that entered, we knew there was no forced entry. We knew that the suspect came in through the window and killed Gul Talwar. We knew this,
all right,
based on the evidence. So because the window was 26 inches high, 24 inches wide, we knew that not anyone could fit in that window. So we had to make the deduction as to the size of the person that went into that window.
And how big were these two men?
Well, Ronnie Aller, for example, was 350 pounds.
That's him, Ronnie.
So I'm here to tell you that Ronnie Aller didn't fit in that window. Terry Blanford is 146 pounds. And as soon as I saw Terry Blanford and I looked at him face to face, I knew right then that he was the shooter of Mr. Talwar.
So this is the killer?
That's the killer.
Guy pulled the trigger anyway.
He's a shooter. Yes, sir.
You got that all from the memory of having walked around the crime site?
Right. I did. I mean, I spent a lot of time inside the scene with the victim. That's typically what I do. That's what most homicide detectives do. You spend a lot of time inside the crime scene. The longer you spend in time inside the scene, the more sense the scene makes to you.
And what happened to these? First, did they both went to jail? One of them went to jail? Or what happened?
One pled and got life plus 20 years. One went to trial and got convicted, and he also got life. So they're both in prison right now.
Oh, so they were working together, but only one guy killed him?
Right. One guy went in, the other one was driving around, waiting for him to come out.
And what were they trying to do? What were they trying to get?
It was a robbery situation, but apparently they were determined to kill the victim, and that's precisely what they did. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you had to hear that here again, but I'm sure you've witnessed it at the court.
No, we're so grateful that we had a successful investigation and a successful prosecution. So it's not a problem to hear about it again.
It brought some closure to your family?
It gave us our father back, Dr. Oz, because for us, you know, if we hadn't had that, and I don't know how families deal with it that don't get that kind of closure, because all I would have ever thought about when I thought about my father was how he died. That's what I would have been left with. So we were very, very fortunate to have Detective Postiglione, his team, do what they did for us, because the last 29 years I've been able to enjoy the memories of my father without that hurt, without that pain of not having a successful investigation.
And Detective Postiglione, let me pry a little into your photographic memory. A lot of the crime scenes that you must be investigating, hundreds of them, they're brutal, right? You get so much into them, you essentially are reliving them because they're in your mind like pictures.
Right.
Is that a heavy burden at times?
I mean, it's kind of like a blessing and a curse scenario, where the blessing part of it is because of my memory, it's helped me solve some homicides over the years, and that's a good thing. The other side is, the curse part is the fact that these cases bubble up from time to time, and it's almost like I'm right there again. But that's okay. I mean, I accept that. I understand that, and I'll take the blessings over the curse, and I think the blessings do outweigh the curse.
Well, thank you for both being here and for sharing the story.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new videos to live the good life.